we are in Hebrews chapter 11. So if you want to turn there, feel free. Parker, the backyard's looking good. Either you're not talking or I can't. Here you go. Alright, everybody at Hebrews 11. No, it's at the very end.
It is?
Yeah, you're talking like
Before
maybe.
Revelation?
Yeah.
Or but
Yeah.
before Peter?
After.
I think I got you.
Yeah, it's like before
It's right
First
before
Peter.
yeah.
Before First Peter, yeah.
Hebrews 11.
I hear you now.
There you go.
But yeah, Hebrews 11. Sweet. So this chapter calls back to a bunch of important people and stories throughout the Old Testament. In order to make sure we're all on the same page, what I'm going to do is going to preface all it's 11 different, or maybe not 11. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, there's 7 different people that it talks about in here from the Old Testament. So we're going to go through and talk about their stories so we're all on the same page, because obviously the author's writing this to the Jews and they have the Old Testament memorized, so they know all the stories. So we're going to go through those first, so the entire chapter will kind of make sense. All right. So the first one we're going to talk about is Cain and Abel. So they were the firstborn children of Adam and Eve. So Cain was a farmer while Abel was a shepherd. One day they both brought an offering before the Lord. Cain, being a farmer, brought some of his crops, while Abel, and this is how it literally spells it out in Genesis, is Cain brought some of his the first fruit of his crops, or the fruit of his crops, and Abel brought a fat portion of the firstborn of his flock. So basically, like the best of the best, like something he offered to the Lord, something that he would want for himself, something that was very important to him. So compared to Abel's offering, Cain's offering displeased God, because he just offered him a random crop. Who's like, yeah, I guess you can have this kind of thing. That was the attitude that it was given in, whereas Abel's was like, I'm sacrificing for you, God. It's the same thing as like the old, not even a parable, the story of the poor woman that gives offering to the church. She gives $1, but it's literally her last dollar, like she needed that, versus the rich man who just gives 10,000, but it means nothing to him. The $1 means way more than the 10,000. So it's not about the quantity, it's about the intention. So because Cain's intention was bad, the Lord was displeased with him, while Abel was faithful to the Lord, and his sacrifice was meaningful. Cain got angry with Abel, and then he ended up killing him. So the next story we've got, any questions about Cain and Abel? Cool. Enoch, there's not a ton in the Bible about Enoch. There's the book of Enoch, which is not canonical. In the I don't think any part of Christianity, major parts of Christianity, consider the book of Enoch canonical. But Enoch was the 7th generation after Adam, and all it pretty much says in Genesis is that he walked with the Lord. He was one of the first prophets to preach of the coming resurrection, a reward when we get to heaven, and divine judgment. So back in his time, people lived hundreds of years, like 6, 7, 800 years. But due to his faith was so profound that Enoch was taken into heaven by God at the age of 365, which is really old as far as we're concerned. But for back then, I mean, he wasn't even middle-aged yet. Or he was right around middle-aged.
So he never technically died, he just went straight
No,
down.
he ascended. So there was only 2 people that have ever ascended into heaven, other than Jesus, 2 humans, I guess. Him and Elijah ascended into heaven. But it's also funny because he gave his son was Methuselah, and Methuselah was the oldest living person to ever live on Earth, which I think is just funny. That a guy that got brought up really early because he was so great, his son ended up staying on Earth the longest. So yeah, that's Enoch. Basically, the Bible just says, hey, he was a great guy. He was servant of the Lord, and he was one of the first prophets to preach prophetically preach of Jesus coming. Next is Noah. Most of you know who Noah is, but he was a righteous man in a corrupt and violent world. He and his family were like the only people on the face of the planet that still worship God, that still practiced, I guess, just the religion of Christianity. Back then it'd be Judaism or whatever. But they were the only one that still loved and believed in the Lord. So humanity was so bad that he decided to destroy it, except for Noah and his family. So God commands Noah to build an ark and place 2 of each kind of animal on it because there would be a great flood. This must have sounded absolutely insane from Noah to Noah because it had never rained before. Like water came up from the ground, and God's basically telling him, like, hey, it's gonna rain a lot. And I'm sure he had to explain to Noah what rain was. Yeah. But Noah obeyed because he had good faith in the Lord, built the ark, and then 2 of every animal. And he and his family were spared because of his faith. Next is Abraham. So Abraham was called by God to leave his homeland and go to a land that God had promised him. Abraham, so he uproots his family in search of the promised land for his obedience. God is pleased and chose him to father the nation of Israel. So all of Israel comes through Abraham. Despite this, Abraham's wife had been unable to bear children up until that point. So when God's like, hey, an entire nation's going to come from you, he's like, hey, my wife's 90 and she's not been able to have kids. No shot. Like, he had faith in the Lord, but he was skeptical. So eventually, God fulfilled the promise. She gave birth when she was 90, gave birth to Isaac, fulfilling God's promise. Later on, God asks Abraham to then offer his promised son. So it's that story where Abraham takes Isaac up to this altar and is prepared to kill him because God says so. He obeys. God obviously intervenes and says, this was just a matter of faith and seeing where your heart was and seeing if you were still truly with me. I was not going to have you sacrifice your son. And then God provides a sheep for them. Literally like a sheep just appears next to them, just climbing up the mountain.
What would his son said after that?
They offer it. I don't know how old his son was, but I bet they were like hoofing it up to the mountain to like make this offering, and they were building the altar and like putting the sticks everywhere and like the kindling and getting it ready. And Isaac must have been looking around and been like, hey, Dad, where's the offering at?
Yeah.
Like, where's the sheep? Well, don't we usually bring like an animal with us or like crops? Like, what's going on here? But God was pleased with Abraham's obedience and blessed him and his family for it, and obviously saved Isaac from that fate. Then Isaac, many years later, had 2 sons named Jacob and Esau. Jacob was able to take Esau's inheritance due to Esau's lack of importance that he placed on it. Esau just, it was not important to him, so Jacob was able to essentially swindle him out of it. Despite these circumstances, Isaac knew that God had a plan for his sons and he would carry out his promise through them. So Isaac knew, it's like, hey, I know you got swindled out of your birthright, but God's got a plan, it'll be right. So Jacob ends up fleeing his father, not from his father, but flees his father's house because Esau was very upset when he realized that he was not going to get an inheritance and that all of the blessings that his father had given him would be going to Jacob. So he flees, and then he comes back many, many years later, having amassed a giant fortune and a giant family. And Esau actually forgives him and takes him back into the family. And then for both of their faiths, obviously they were made a nation out of through Abraham. Then it talks about Moses. So Moses was born during a time when the Pharaoh of Egypt had ordered that all male Hebrew infants were to be killed. So a lot of us have seen this in either like nursery school or like kids' church, things like that. Moses was saved by being placed in a basket as a baby and just sent floating down the Nile River. So God had the Pharaoh's daughter actually find him, and then she raised him as her own.
Wow.
So Moses' parents there had faith that God would protect Moses, and he did. So though Moses was raised in the palace, he did not abandon his heritage as an Israelite. He would stand up for his fellow Israelites. He chose to be mistreated with the people. He chose to be with his people, the people of God, when he could have easily lived a life of just pleasure and sin and just doing whatever he wanted because he was essentially grandfathered in royalty. He chose to live his life as much as he could with the Israelites. So Moses, having led a faithful life, fled Egypt after killing an Egyptian that was mistreating a Hebrew. God then appears to Moses in the wilderness and tells him to go back and confront Pharaoh and to demand the release of the Hebrews in Egypt. So, through Moses' faith, God performed many signs and miracles and many plagues that were put upon Pharaoh and the people of Egypt, so that Pharaoh finally took him seriously and then let the Israelites go. After letting them go, Pharaoh changes his mind and sent his men after them. He's like, actually, I want them back. So he just let all of his slaves go. Now he wants to go get them back. They chase them all the way to the Red Sea. Then Moses parts the Red Sea. Everyone gets across. Then he closes the Red Sea on the following Egyptians. Yeah.
That's just, I don't know.
There's like several places in the Red Sea where they find like chariot wheels and stuff like that, like under the sea. Yeah. Which like there's no way to tell like was this the place or did somebody just
throw a
chariot wheel in here. But it is kind of cool to look at the places that it could possibly have been. Because I mean he could have parted a teeny tiny part of the Red Sea or he could part the whole thing. Like it doesn't matter. It's both equally as impossible.
Right.
So yeah, then so Moses went through a lot in his life, a lot of good, really, because he went through all of that, and then God further blessed Moses by giving him the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. So after this, he promises that the Hebrews will reach a promised land, and by their faith they do. So by Moses' faith, he was able to do all of these things, survive being possibly killed, survive being persecuted, and then escape Egypt. And then the last one here, or I guess, let's see. This is the last two, actually. So then Joshua came after Moses and led the Israelites into the promised land that God said he would. He then sent spies to look at the city of Jericho, which is in the middle of the promised land, or was on the way to the promised land, because the Lord had promised them basically that he'd take over the city. And the city of Jericho was incredibly well fortified. It was essentially, as far as like these times were considered, like impenetrable. Like the walls were too big, too thick, the military was too strong. So he sent spies in. They were being sought out by the authorities because they had gotten wind that spies were among them. And then a prostitute named Rahab actually found them when they were fleeing and hid them in her house, because she realized that they were men of God. She realized that they were there for a purpose and that she needed to hide them. So the guards came knocking on her door. She said, "Nobody's here. We don't have anybody." And yeah, so she hid them. Because she hid them, all of the Israelites at that point, and Joshua decided to spare her and her family whenever they inevitably took over the city, and said, because of your faithfulness to God and to the people of God, we will spare you and your family. So then the spies go back, and then God instructs Joshua and all the other Israelites to march around the walls of Jericho for 7 days, and then on the seventh day, blow their trumpets really loud, and then the walls of Jericho will literally fall down and crumble. So they do that. People are a little skeptical, but they still do it. And then they blow their trumpets, and the walls of Jericho fall down, and then they siege the city and take it over and save Rahab and her family, or preserve them, essentially. So yeah, through their faith, that was able to happen, and then Rahab was able to basically come out of that. So that is the preface to this chapter. So we'll kind of read through it, and then we will talk about it. Does anybody have any questions on any of the Old Testament figures we talked about?
So like the preface with.
Yep, it's like a bunch of the Old Testament. Like that's several books of the Old Testament that they're referencing. So cool, we'll jump in. And then I'll read a good bit, and then I'll stop, and if you guys have any questions, we'll talk about it. But a lot of it is just talking about these people and how they were faithful. So, chapter 11, verse 1. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. For by it the people of old received their commendation. By faith we understand that the universe was created by the word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of things that are visible. By faith Abel offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain, through which he was commended as righteous, God commending him by accepting his gifts. And through his faith, though he died, he still speaks. By faith Enoch was taken up so that he should not see death, and he was not found because God had taken him. Now before he was taken, he was commended as having pleased God. And without faith it is impossible to please him. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. So that one I've got underlined in my Bible. That's incredibly important, not only for these people back then, but for us. It is impossible to please God unless you have faith in him. Because anything that you do, if you're not a Christian, I mean, it's not going to please God because you're not doing it for him. You're doing it for some other moral standard that you've created in your mind, or you're doing it for the pleasure or the notoriety, or just for somebody to pat you on the back. So that's incredibly important right there, because a lot of people think they can just live their lives good. They can do good things. Their deeds will get them into heaven. No, that is not the case at all whatsoever. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, they're not a Christian, but they hold the Christian values. Like they hold the Ten Commandments as best as they can, kind of thing. And it's like, you're just missing the point. That's not what Christianity is about. It's not about holding to a list of laws. That's Judaism. That's the old school. That's legalism. Christianity is faith first, and then through faith you will do good works. And if you just have works and no faith, it's irrelevant. It does not matter. So I really like that verse. I have it underlined. It's one of my favorite verses in this chapter. So we're going to pick back up in verse 7. By faith, Noah, being warned by God concerning events as yet unseen, in reverent fear, constructed an ark for the saving of his household. By this he condemned the world and became an heir of the righteousness that comes by faith. Any questions on that first section there? Sweet. All right. Verse 8. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was to receive as an inheritance. And he went out, not knowing where he was going. By faith, he went to live in the land of promise, as in a foreign land, living in tents with Isaac and Jacob, heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city that has foundations, whose designer and builder is God. By faith, Sarah herself received power to conceive, even when she was past the age, since she considered him faithful who had promised. Therefore, from one man, and him as good as dead, basically, the dude was super old, like...
As good as dead.
Yeah, as good as dead. This writer did not hold back when talking about him. Were born descendants as many as the stars of heaven, and as many as the innumerable grains of sand by the seashore. These all died in faith, not having received the things promised, but having seen them and greeted them from afar, and having acknowledged that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. For people who speak thus make it clear that they are seeking a homeland. If they had been thinking of that land from which they had gone out, they would have had opportunity to return. But as it is, they desire a better country, that is, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared for them a city. So, this is talking about all of them died in their faith, which is incredibly important. It means that they held through to the end. They were faithful their entire lives, even though they obviously had some hiccups, they had some issues. They were faithful to God. They had faith in God throughout their entire lives. While some of them did receive some of the benefits of having faith in God, some were given the promised land, some were given military victories, some were given children if they really wanted them, or if they were just having children to please God. They probably didn't want children at that old age at that point. That was probably suboptimal for them. Some of them were blessed here on earth, but what this is saying is that the ultimate promise, the things promised, are eternity in heaven, and they didn't see those here on earth. They greeted them from afar, meaning that they had faith that they would come. God showed them the things that were to come based on their blessings, based on the things that they saw here on earth. And they acknowledged that they were strangers and exiles here on earth, that this was not their ultimate home, and they had faith in that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes. Sweet. Alright, verse 17. By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promises was in the act of offering up his only son, of whom it was said, "Through Isaac shall your offspring be named." He considered that God was able even to raise him from the dead, from which, figuratively speaking, he did receive him back. By faith, Isaac invoked future blessings on Jacob and Esau. By faith, Jacob, when dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph, bowing in worship over the head of his staff. By faith, Joseph, at the end of his life, made mention of the exodus of the Israelites and gave directions concerning his bones. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hidden for 3 months by his parents because they saw that the child was beautiful, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. By faith, Moses, when he was grown up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to be mistreated with the people of God than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He considered the reproach of Christ greater wealth than the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking for the reward. By faith he left Egypt, not being afraid of the anger of the king, for he endured seeing him who is invisible. By faith he kept the Passover and sprinkled the blood so that the destroyer of the firstborn might not touch them. By faith the people crossed the Red Sea as on dry land, but the Egyptians, when they attempted to do the same, were drowned. By faith the walls of Jericho fell down after they had been encircled for 7 days. By faith Rahab the prostitute did not perish with those who were disobedient, because she had given a friendly welcome to the spies.
Emphasis on faith.
So clearly, faith real important. Very, very, very important. Because it only repeats it 11 times. Yeah, 1 gorillion times. But yeah, that's what this chapter is obviously emphasizing, is faith and how all these people in the Old Testament had faith.
Just know that a great-grandpa was screaming. By the time he got to the 12 by faith, was probably the loudest by faith in his church when he was. How loud he was just off of regular passages. Yeah. That many repeated syllables, I know he was living for that.
Dude, he was as red as your shirt. Screaming, dude. He might have been on the floor. We're talking about our great-grandfather was like a very, very, very southern, like,
passionate preacher.
Passionate.
And if he read that full passage, I guarantee you each faith would get progressively louder.
Not a great guy, though.
That last one, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, horrible, man.
But great preacher.
I wouldn't say great preacher, but very charismatic, very loud, like over the top.
Yeah.
Electric.
Yeah.
A little misguided, but yeah.
A little more than a little.
He's a great-grandfather?
Yeah.
Yeah, great-grandfather, yeah.
Yeah, he was rough.
Have
you all seen The Righteous Gemstones at all?
Yes, I've seen it.
He reminds me of Jesse, which is
Oh,
Danny McBride's
gosh.
character.
He's
Doing
more intense.
coke?
Not in terms of like partying and stuff, but like he looked. The looks that he has with him are very similar to me.
Curly
No,
hair.
I don't think he did. I think he was very straight laced as far as like drugs and alcohol were concerned. But it was like a very like next level misogyny. And sexism. Like next level.
What
Not
about
like
racism? His great grandfather. He had him.
I don't know about that. I don't think he was overtly. I would assume he was, but not like insane.
I'm not racist.
It was more so like beat your wife and kids real bad sometimes, and like preach about it and say like sometimes you just gotta smack your wife
I
around.
beat that boy.
Yeah. Like beat that, and then and then just a lot of his theology was just off. But
like he'd say something, or he'd read something. And
he read it to their
flip
benefit.
It to where,
And then they did a little bit of prosperity gospel. It's like they lived in a giga house, like mega mansion.
Oh, so he was legit righteous.
Do you know anything about that show?
Yeah.
It's based in South Carolina.
It's in Charleston.
Yes.
So funny.
So I learned that in like the second episode, and I was like, and I was seeing the whatever Jesse, the character that Danny McBride plays, and I was like, he's got curly up top hair with like sideburns, and I was like, I'm seeing a lot of, like, I wouldn't have been surprised if they were like, yeah, we pulled this from a picture of this old preacher up in Boiling Springs.
I've seen all the clips of it of
so funny.
whatever that guy's name is, the funny one.
They're all funny.
Danny McBride.
Like the main one.
Oh, Baby Bobby Billy, Baby Billy.
Oh yeah.
Like,
after all my expenses, I pay my bills, my people.
He said, I need
make
$2 million.
nothing so much.
He said, I need $2 million and an 8-ball.
Yeah, he was something. But yeah, if he did preach this, it would be probably insane.
Yeah, that was just, as soon as you said like the 12th time, I was like, he would have been going crazy.
He was like, by faith.
Exactly.
By faith.
No, and it's like next level, like scream.
Oh, I can't even imagine. I think we were there for like one time he did a sermon, and it was like in his like.
I've seen videos too.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I gotta see one of these.
We'll see if we can find it.
We only went to church one time, I think, that I can remember at least.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
All right, picking back up, verse 32. And what more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon. I guess Barak.
Gideon's actually one of the sons' names in the show too.
Obama's here. Barak, Samson, Jephthah of David, and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, were made strong out of weakness, became mighty in war, put foreign armies to flight. Women received back their dead by resurrection. Some were tortured, refusing to accept release, so that they might rise again to a better life. Others suffered mocking and flogging, and even chains and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn in two, they were killed with the sword. They went about in skins of sheep and goats, destitute, afflicted, mistreated, of whom the world was not worthy, wandering about in deserts and mountains, and in dens and caves of the earth. And all these, though commended through their faith, did not receive what was promised, since God had provided something better for us, that apart from us they should not be made perfect. So, again, this is big on the faith, big on the promises, big on all that, and then 32 to the finish brings in the reality of it. It's like, yes, they had great faith, yes, they were great men, yes, they could have received some blessings here on earth, but we're looking at the ultimate blessings in heaven, but they were persecuted greatly here on earth. Even sawn in two, they were tortured, imprisoned. I mean, Paul, who wrote several books in the Bible, was in jail most of his adult life because of his beliefs. And I mean, it's saying that it's not all sunshines and rainbows just because you have faith. It says, and I think the verse is, I can't remember actually what the verse is, but it's with faith or by faith you can move mountains. So this isn't to say by faith you will move mountains. This is not saying like all you have to do is pray about something and it's going to happen. It says you can. So through God you can do anything. It doesn't say that you will.
Right.
It doesn't say like, oh, I really want this brand new Cybertruck or whatever real bad. but I work at McDonald's, so I'm going to have faith that I'm going to get it. It's like, that's not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Through God, through faith, through His will, most importantly, we can do anything. Not we will. So, clearly, all of these stories show just how important your faith in God is. God wants your unbridled faith in Him. He wants all of you. He doesn't want just part of you. He would rather have either 100% of you or none of you. He doesn't want this lukewarm back and forth relationship. It's almost like, I guess the easiest way for us to understand it, it's like a girl that you're talking to. It's like, I don't want you just sometimes, at least if you want to date her and marry her. Like, I don't want you just every other week or once a month. I want you either all the time or never, because relationships work that way.
Right.
You're either with somebody or you're not. And that's how we should be with God. Let's see. So, then jumping into, we've talked about faith a ton through this whole thing. So if you struggle with your faith sometimes, don't feel as close to God as you want to, or just don't know what to pray for, then you, by the power of God, can ask Him and tell Him to, hey, I'm here, I'm doing what I can, I don't feel your presence. I want to be close to you, and He will show Himself to you. He will reveal Himself. It might not be in the way that you want. It might not be a giant neon sign that says, cross, read your Bible, or like, cross, this is God, what's up? Like, it's going to be in small ways sometimes. It's going to be in just a piece that you'll get. Or it'll just be in certain decisions. I mean, some things that just fall into place that you were worried about after you've been praying for a while. But you're able to almost put it in God's court and say, hey man, like, the Bible says that through faith, if I have faith in you, that you will show yourself to me, you will basically be here with me, and that's what I'm asking you. So yeah, that's good for me to remember, because there's obviously times where you ebb and flow. Like, you feel really close to God, and then you just taper off, even if you don't necessarily screw up and do anything really bad. Even if it's just a slow time. Sometimes things are going so well that you almost forget. You're like, oh, okay, I got this. Like, this is me. And then all of a sudden something bad happens, and you realize just how little you have control of. But yeah, I remind myself of this constantly. It's like, look, like, just pray to God to show Himself to you, to be with you through your faith. Yeah, He says in the Bible throughout, basically, call upon Him and you shall be answered. He's a personal God. He sent His Son down to die for us, so He would know us better. He struggled. He lived through temptation. He understands us. So when we ask, like, hey, I don't even know what to say when I'm praying, like, I don't know what's going on, I just need you, God, He understands. So I want us to all grow in our faith as much as possible, feeling the presence of God in our daily lives and thanking Him for what He's done for us. What's also cool is in these passages, I mean, none of these people are perfect. I mean, you go through the stories that we talked about, they were prostitutes, liars, killers, deceivers, rebels, sinners. I mean, they are just like all of us. But all of them are included in this passage of the Bible, emphasizing their great faith they had in God. One was quite literally, like, killed multiple people, a prostitute. I mean, if those people can have so much faith that they're considered good material for a passage in the Bible, I mean, we can too. And it's good to remind yourself of that. Obviously, that we do need God. We are sinners. We have an unpayable debt that we owe to Him. But through faith, we're washed clean by that. So yeah, God can use your faith just like He used Rahab's faith, Abraham's faith, everybody's faith for His will. And all you have to do is let Him ask Him. But do we have any questions or anything on Hebrews 11? Yeah, and it was even nice for me, like, because I just read through the Old Testament not long ago, but it's always just nice as a refresher, because I don't memorize everything, so I just mix up Abraham, Moses, David, like, sometimes just on what they did and when they did it and where they did it. So it was also nice for me to just kind of make sure that I remembered everything correctly. But yeah, if we don't have any questions or anything, anybody have any prayer requests?
Oh, my buddy, his dad got in a bad motorcycle accident. He went to Malden High School. It was Ian McMurray. He was Orange Cross.
Is he blonde?
Yeah.
Glasses?
Yeah.
A little bit bigger?
Yeah.
I think I know him.
Mm-hmm.
How do I know him though?
I've taken him out. I've seen you out before.
Oh, yeah.
I've taken him out with
But
him.
I feel like I know him another way. His dad got in a wreck?
His dad got in like a bad one. He's like in the ICU.
Oh my god.
He's like brain bleed.
Mm.
Yeah, brain bleed. Apparently they like unsedated him a little bit yesterday to see like
How he responded.
how he responded, and apparently he like woke up and was like, "What happened?" And that he's like, "You got in a wreck on 385." He's like, "Where was I going?" This is what he said. He said, Ian told him, he's like, "You're gonna go paint Granddad's wall." He said, "F that wall," and then he like passed back out. Like they sedated him again, and they like he was back out.
Oh my gosh. Hey.
Which I don't know how any of that stuff works, obviously, but like
Yeah.
it was like something's up with his brainstem,
Yeah.
and he looks bad.
Ugh.
He's like, bro, he looks
Like, beat
terrible.
up.
He like broke his tibula.
Yeah.
He broke his tibula, and he like snapped some other stuff in his arms. But he's pretty beat up. He's been in the hospital like for a week.
Yeah.
So.
Right. We'll definitely pray for him.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Either of y'all got anything? What'd you say, Josh?
Kind of like a weird one. It's not really like exactly a prayer, but I'm just thankful that we all have food to eat, water to drink, and shelters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
The vast majority of the world doesn't,
Yeah.
or at least worry about it. All right,
Why are you trying to tank the internet?
we gotta get you.
Throw over.
Get him, Rock.
All right, so we'll definitely give God thanks for that. So yeah, we'll jump into prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for the wonderful week that we've had so far. Thank you for that all these guys are able to gather here today. Pray that you give those that drove here safe travels home. Thank you for, again, just instilling in these guys the importance that it is to read your word, to dig into it, and to understand it, Lord. I pray that you would help us all have faith like those in Hebrews 11. Lord, just have your way with us. Have us do what you want us to do, Lord. And I pray that you would help us when our faith wavers, and help us when it's not so hard to be obedient, Lord. I know I'm guilty of it, just wavering on my conviction, wavering on what I know should be done, because it's just frankly easier sometimes. So Lord, be with us in our decision making in our daily lives, Lord. I pray for Ian's father. He was in a bad accident, Lord. I pray that you would just be with him and be with his family, Lord, in this difficult time. And I also, again, just thank you for all of us having a roof over our heads, food to eat, places to clock in and out of, Lord. Thank you for just blessing us with all of these things that most of the world isn't privy to. Lord, thank you again for that. And I pray that we all would have a good rest of our week. And I pray for all of those unnamed prayer requests, and pray for all those people that weren't able to make it, Lord. I pray that they would be able to make it next week. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.